Hi, Bruce Burke, and I'm here today with Vince Kadar from Telepin Software. We're at the Social Mobile Payments Conference in Miami, Florida, and Vince just came off stage recently and told us all about his deployments all across the world. Uh, in mobile payments and reading the news that's in the channels, you read a lot about ISIS and Google Wallet and all these other iterations that are starting to take hold. The Tinder's starting to catch fire a little bit, but Vince is doing mobile money every day all across the world, and so I wanted to highlight some of the people that are really doing it every day and really talk about, what's required and how did the idea get started and how did you grow it? So Vince, welcome and thank you for attending and presenting with us today.
No, thank you.
I wanted to start with really like, where did you start with the business? How did you get into mobile money? How did that start?
That's an interesting question. And to be brutally honest, the market took us here. We saw a market need starting to form, and we started to push into that market need. And so we, again, like some of our competitors in this marketplace, we started actually where the need was, and the need was an airtime replenishment and saving money in order to recharge your handset. So again, outside of the U.S., everybody carries a handset. Again, we're at how many activations are we at right now? 4 billion, 6 billion, I don't know.
Like
It's a gastronomical number. But everybody's prepaid outside of the U.S. Nobody has a postpaid account. So that fundamental was important in order to save some money in order to replenish the cost of replenishing your airtime account. Everybody used scratch cards in the past. In this market here, it still uses scratch cards. You can buy it at Walmart, as an example, to recharge your Boost account. Okay. Why do you need that? Why can't it be done electronically? Because just putting that plastic card, printing it, and then storing it in inventory, there's a cost. And that cost is then sometimes not even recognized when it comes to, well, let's say that $5 or $10 recharge card was out of stock. Then what do? Well, you're probably going to walk away from it because you don't have the cash. Are you going to upsell into the $50 unit? Well, maybe not, right? And maybe there was a promotion on the $10, which is really why you want it, because $10 gives you an extra $2 in airtime. So we started in that, I guess in that thrust, and then what our customers started asking us is that, can you extend your platform in order to do, because you're already doing airtime replenishment, can you do bill payments and an agent bill payment system? Whereas I'm using my existing merchants that are replenishing my subscribers for airtime, can I use that agent network in order to pay a utility bill?
So it's a walk-in bill payment facility.
Exactly. So what you're doing is you're extending branch banking where branch banking doesn't exist. And now branch banking is existing at the merchant network. So an operator will say, I can pay your utility bill at these select merchants, right? As an example. And that's where it starts from. That's where we get the understanding of doing cash collections, remittance into a billing system. And that billing system now is not the operator's billing system. It's a third-party utility payment.
It's water, electric, sewer.
Basic stuff, because in those particular markets, you do not have web-based banking. You've got very immature environments there. In order to pay a bill, you stand in line. And you stand in line for hours in order to pay your simple utility bill. And it's not as dissimilar. Like, rewind the clock in North America here 80 years ago. What did your parents do? What did your grandparents do in order to pay a utility bill?
I remember my mother driving into a drive-up window at a Florida Power building, and paying the bill at
Exactly.
Florida Power. There was
you went to the utility company.
You didn't even mail in the bill. I don't know how. I don't remember how she received the bill. I'm guessing that's
Right.
in the mail, but you didn't even mail in a check with the bill. You went to the store and paid it right at the store.
So, can you imagine the chaos that is created with a market of 80 million people, where again your utility has to be paid on that particular Friday? You've got massive amounts of queues, lineups, and again you're taking a day off of work to do that. Your productivity is down, right? Introducing this, charge a meager amount in order to do that. Maybe $1 that gets collected by the agent in order to do that. now you've got complete convenience in order to do this, right? And so we start along that thread in order to then introduce, well, let's introduce a wallet for the consumer. Let's then introduce, actually, again, the merchant wallet was always there from the very beginning. The consumer wallet, we then just added on and give the capability and the convenience to the subscriber, right? Now then introduce salary disbursements, being paid. You're
paying directly into the mobile wallet for the consumer.
That's right, and you know who really wants that wallet? The government stipend, right? So now I can create a separate wallet as a government payment, social assistance, what it would be. That particular payment doesn't incur fees like the other one does, maybe through your salary, but that starts to facilitate and help to drive the merchant ecosystem that's created. Because the dynamic that happens is that when people get paid in these markets on payday, they run to the ATM, they run to the bank, they completely extract everything out because they don't trust banks, right? Look at what
Take
happened.
the money out before it collapses.
It's 2009 in the U.S. How many banks actually, disappeared? Everybody feels the same way in all these remote markets. Every day, they don't trust banks.
So when you're deploying, and I know you deploy through a lot of different ones, so there's probably not a pat answer. When you're deploying your platform, the bank or the operator or the distributor is licensing the platform from you, and they're the ones that are rolling it out in the area.
Correct.
And so if I'm a merchant and I take in $100 for an electric payment, that distributor is collecting that cash from that merchant, and that's his responsibility. So you're the platform, you're not the distributor. Are you a distributor in any way, shape, or form, so to speak?
Never.
You're just the platform, and you provide the services, and
right.
you don't deal with the risk. That's all their issue. And so, I know a little bit about airtime distribution, and I know a little bit about the walk-in bill pay from experience here in the U.S. Some companies I've worked with, and I know that we were ACHing the retailer, and when you ACH a retailer, it's 2-3 days sometimes before the money actually arrives in your bank, as a electronic transfer. And sometimes 3 days later, you get a fax from the bank and said, we tried to ACH this account and it NSF and that sort of thing. In a country a remote country, how are they collecting that money? How are they doing that? I mean, because I know that kind of infrastructure isn't in place in some of these emerging market countries. I mean, in M-Pesa, the guy's walking in and he's saying, I need to put, $100 on my M-Pesa account or 100 shillings. And the person behind the counter is using a cell phone just like the person in front of him. That's their POS system is a mobile phone. So it's like, can you dig a little deeper and tell me like how that all takes place, and especially in relation to your system?
Well, the perfect thing in all of these markets is that there is no assumed way in order to do it, right? ACH doesn't exist, right? So the fact that their systems are so antiquated and far behind, they don't have any fixed way of thinking about this is how we're going to conduct business, and we have to utilize the system that's there. We can differentiate it. So that's why, in a lot of these markets, they're completely leaping over the infrastructure that was built in the U.S. Years ago in order to facilitate, check clearing and all the basic things that we have today. And that's partly why I think in the North American market, that drags us down a little bit. Because we're always thinking, oh, we should be innovating. We should be actually doing those things like what Kenya has and what's existing in some of these other markets. Yeah, we should be. But you know what? In order to actually get to the future, you got to leave some of the past behind you. And I don't think we're willing to leave that past behind you. Like, why does a credit card, why does it remain 16 digits? Where did the 16-digit PAN come from? Why don't we leave that behind? Why don't we use actually something completely different? And everybody says, why? But then, the question is, well, we have to use it because that's just the way we always used it. Just like, your mom always used the same knife to carve the turkey. Thanksgiving, right?
Why isn't it alphanumeric rather than numeric?
So, things like that, actually. Why aren't we using biometrics right now? Like, like there's things that exist today that we don't really need going forward. And so there's no set way in conducting business. And for merchant payments, again, we're creating something that didn't exist before in a lot of these markets. You know, it's a sense of security, it's a sense of convenience. Doing a salary disbursement as an example. Well, they get paid on salary day, and in some markets they have a plastic card because the government mandates it as far as employment in that particular country. In others, it's still purely a cash-based society. But what it all comes back down to, even if I was using some electronic form, I'm pulling that out into cash. Why? Because that's what the merchant system requires. So fundamentally, what a market has to do is they have to invest the time into build the merchant ecosystem. If it doesn't exist, what do I need it for? Right? And again, it comes down to what problem are we trying to solve? So in the North American market, if we're trying to introduce mobile payments, are we solving a problem that exists today? Like, do you have a problem with buying goods and services somewhere? You've got probably about 100 different ways to Sunday to pay for it.
Yes, and to me it doesn't, I've said over and over that mobile financial services in the U.S. is for the prepaid customer in the U.S., not for the postpaid customer.
Right.
It's for migrants, credit challenged, the cash consumer. But there's a lot of different handles that's put on it. But the cash consumer is the customer for it for security reasons, just like in Africa. You know, they put their shillings on M-Pesa. They call it P to me. You know, they're putting it in on one end of the journey and taking it out on the other end of the journey, just so they can have a safe journey. You know, things like that. And I think that's the market. And I was at Finovate in New York a couple weeks ago, and there was a couple pre-cashes doing a mobile wallet around the unbanked and you know, the credit challenged. It seemed like they were kind of focused on the migrant workers and that sort of thing. But so with your deployments, so you have someone come to you and they say, you know, you're advertising mobile payments today, and they see you and they come to you and they say, okay, I want to deploy a mobile wallet. Do they really know what they want to do?
No.
They have no clue whatsoever what they want. They know that they want to be able to conduct electronic financial transactions using mobile phones, and that's about it. They may have some ideas, but they don't know what's reality and what's not. So do you work, obvious, and a lot of companies start with one idea and things change over time.
Correct.
And you said in your session this morning that, you know, you helped them turn on a dime, and you were able to help them make those changes as they need to make those changes and that sort of thing. But on the initial ramp up, how do you go about, what's the process that you go through with a mobile network operator or whoever wants to deploy mobile financial services?
Well, the first question we ask is, has a regulatory body approved it? So as a regulator approved it, then that's yes, then we go off to the next questions, right? Do you have a merchant system, merchant ecosystem today, or is it outsourced to a third party? And so again, it's a series of questions that we go through with our business team to understand how mature are you with your thinking. And oddly enough, at times we get a lot of people that come to us and say, I'm from this market, and I'm now living in the U.S. I think this would be great if my country can have a mobile payment system. Well, that's great. Okay, so and who are you? And are you a mobile operator? Are you a payment provider? Well, I'm just some guy. All right, push that one aside. Right?
Next.
now we get into like a bank or into a mobile operator, and the mobile operator at times will come to us and say, like, we have some ideas. Okay, who's the team that's done this before? Have you got anybody in there? Okay, do you have a copy of the regulation? Send it to us. We'll then study it, and then from there, we'll start providing the operator with advice.
So certain regulations may prohibit certain kinds of transactions.
Some regulations say you can only have one wallet, right? Where you can't have more than one. Okay, so all right, so now be aware this is how you have to run your business because of what the regulator. And at times we're even brought in before. Like, we're working in about 3 different markets right now where we're working with the regulator, and we're lobbying the regulator in order to push it in the direction that we need it to go to. Because there's about 3 different markets. One was Brazil, the other one is Nigeria, and the third one was India, where these were bank-led models. There's a couple more that are bank-led models as well. But what ended up happening is that, we were pushing on the operator as far as, okay, are you going to make a decision? Has the regulator made a decision? Oh, they're bank-led. Okay, bank-led, stay away, right? India was a bank-led model initially. When things didn't happen in the right direction, the regulator changed the direction and said, operators, go at it, right? You guys have, an understanding of how to do it. There's a fairly clear model within PESA and other examples in the marketplace. The door is now open to you, and that changed everything. Now you'll see, again, solutions popping up in the marketplace in India, probably unannounced right now, as far as mobile money deployments and equivalent to what's happened within PESA. So there's not ever one real clear-cut answer, to your question, but a lot of the time it's really sitting down with the operator, understanding their business model, building their business model with them, understanding the regulator, lobbying the regulator. Like, we're taking it down to some grassroots information, using examples. The nice thing is that I've got a good customer base that I can say, well, in this particular market, this is how we studied, and this is what worked. Over here is, well, this is how we get to tune it, and this is what failed, right? And we can look at different pricing models on how one pricing model, backfired, but the other one, acted as a stimulus in order for growth. And we take all that and factor that into the overall story. And so when my operations team descend in and to assist with marketing, we look at the marketing plan, this is where we think you should adjust, based on what we know. We don't come in as the big consultants, we're not like an Accenture, but we do provide some assistance, and that's just the benefit of working with us.
In your deployments, you have network operators, you have distribution companies, for lack of a better term, and I'm guessing there's some financial institutions and that sort of thing. What's the majority of the business? Who's your primary customer?
85% is mobile operators.
It's mobile operators.
We have some banks and some payment processors, but they're slightly actually a different type of solution that ends up going into those environments. One is mobile banking, the other one is the ability to add augmented value-added services as a payment processor, and sometimes it's an interconnection between the two.
In most of the markets that you're doing it, they're not running around with Androids, they're not running around with Apples. I know as much as Apple like to think they're the world leader, it's just not a reality in some of these emerging markets. Is the majority of what you're doing, is the interface, is it a WAP interface? Is it just SMS messages? What's the...
So in the majority of our deployments, we utilize USSD, so unstructured service data. It's the same signal, the SS7 interface that SMS is carried across. We are starting to see evidence of a $30 Android handset hitting the African market. That's going to change the landscape of some of these deployments in the future. So we'll see some smartphone applications happening on the handset. What we see is in the agent network is starting to grow up a little differently, where if an agent is conducting the KYC and the activation and registration for subscribers, they'll have a smartphone. And so part of the process of registering new consumers for mobile money will be take a picture of the individual, take a picture of the electronic documents, the government issued ID. Some are using biometrics as well. All that information goes into our database, and that formulates the registration process. So it does happen, but that's, again, when it's that type of a deployment, that's what government subsidies are applying to those smartphones.
In providing that service, generally you're talking about, you're a centrally located provider. There's a lot of talk about clouds. There's a lot of talk, I tend to think that about 1/10 of the people that talk about clouds actually have a cloud. I think a lot of people have stacks of equipment in a data center somewhere. But I don't know, what's your biggest deployment? How many users?
Its biggest single deployment is sitting in an operator in Central Asia they have 40 million active subscribers, and on that network registered is roughly about 12 million. The agent network there represents about 600,000 to 700,000 agents as well, and it's flourishing every day.
So what does it take from a network perspective to control that and run that? I mean, that's quite a bit of equipment, it's quite a bit of data that's flowing in and out, it's a lot of ports in and out, it's a lot of numbers being crunched, you know, and thank God numbers are perfect, you know, and all that. But you know, I mean, what's needed to run something like that? I mean, that's pretty substantial amount of data and information.
Where we see where our customers are on top of the business and there aren't any issues whatsoever is that when there's tight controls that are put in place right from the very beginning. And we've seen that time and time again. If it's too loosey-goosey at the very beginning and there's not enough people that are in the know, then a system is typically breached. And it's always, as you know, fraud happens from the inside, not from the outside. There's hackers that are out there, but then that's just a poorly implemented system. We've never had a breach from the outside. Wherever we saw some funky business going on, it's always from the inside. And that's typically picked up as soon as the platform tries to reconcile itself. It's picked up immediately and is flagged. So, we're able to at least create something that scales with our customers, and to scale with a customer such as that, we're talking serious horsepower and serious, these cloud-based solutions.
Yeah.
If someone says, I've got something for the cloud, it's for the world, that kind of tells me, actually, I don't know if you really know what you're doing, because in some markets, you have to put it in country. You cannot run it in a cloud, right? It has to be deployed in that particular market because they don't want money to be sitting outside of their market environment, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, okay, you got something for the cloud. And as you said, well, has you deployed it? Is it outside of the U.S.? Is it the World Series in baseball where, the World Series is only actually a national thing, not truly global?
Some of the diagrams you showed this morning, very complex system that addresses a lot of different needs and a lot of different cultures. I mean, you're from LATAM and Caribbean all the way over to the other side of the world.
Yep.
And how many total deployments right now active?
Active right now is 35. Coming online, there's another 5 that are coming online in 6 months.
And how long have you been in business doing this?
This is our 6th year.
How are you getting the majority of your customers? Is it word of mouth now? Is it, hey, we had a great experience with Vince's company, and you should use him too?
Some of it translates to that when we're talking to group operators. And I will say that, again, attacking a market that needs it, in particular, again, we started off with one particular market that's tied to a rather large group, right? The group eventually says, well, we need to make a decision and a recommendation, and they'll pick us and maybe, our competitor as well. And, again, then it turns into, where do we fit in? We then have to negotiate with that local operating company in the next market. So it started in that way, and it snowballed because of that. We then targeted very specific shows like this one here, like the GSMA Mobile Money Summit, like Mobile Money Canada, wherever it would be. We use social media as well, but again, social media doesn't exactly work.
The operators aren't watching Twitter.
No,
not really.
And in some markets, you really have to understand what is required in order to do business in that particular market. In Africa, you have to come in through government, right? And so this is where I use the trade commissioners from my country in order to set up ambassador meetings, bring in trade commissioners as well, and we get to the right people at the right time for the first meeting, and that works, right? Because again, you've got to understand how is market conducted in those particular countries, right? And in Southeast Asia, it's a little different, right? They'll run a process. You got to get to know them. You've got to sign anti-corruption documents as well. So
the system you were mentioning, the reconciliation, that's daily, and I'm guessing that along the path of 24 hours, you're doing a real-time reconciliation along the way and that sort of thing to safeguard your customer and
right.
So security, number one, it's the first element that you have to address from the very beginning, and if it's not secure from the beginning, it's why even do it.
Right.
A basic deployment for an operator. I don't want to get into what's the final cost, but an initial investment to deploy a mobile financial service platform for a mobile network operator with, I don't know, a nice round number of subscribers, 10 million. what would be the cost approximately? I'm not trying to nail you down here. I'm not trying to.
You know, the way that we approach this is that we try to be realistic. So, you know, give me a 5-year window as far as your growth and penetration, because again, you're going to have 10 million subscribers, but if you don't do it right, you could end up with, you know, only 30,000 registering and it not being a success. So we usually start off with a system that we think gives them at least a 2-year window,
Okay.
right? We'll put together the model for them. As the system scales and as we see it growing, then we'll scale the platform as we can. And I think I talked about that earlier today, where we initially deployed a system in one of our customers in East Africa or West Africa. And you know, again, we start off with a very small and meager, this was your first year projection, and it
blew your proportions out of
went
proportion.
almost 10 times, almost 10, and you know what? It was because they were doing everything right, which was great. And I like to have a problem like that. Okay, let's go in, let's add additional hardware.
You need customers like that.
It's perfect, actually. And so, you know, they got the recipe, and, you know, they're a very good customer. You know, they since then, and that was just on the airtime system, since then, now they're launching MFS, and we're monitoring, you know, the growth of the MFS solution as well. And you know what, again, you've got to, I don't like to go to a customer and say, okay, you know what, you need to, you know, spend $3 million with hardware and then another whatever would be with me in order to actually deploy this solution. Let's talk turkey, right? What is it that you want to do? Let's be realistic. You know,
Yeah.
I don't want to kill somebody, or, you know, really there's too much shock. They'll say, well, I can only ever spend maybe a third of that. Okay, well, are you serious about the business? You know, do you want to actually run a high availability solution, or are you looking for that Windows box? Because if it's Windows and you want that, you know, smoking hole, you know, in the system, then you're going to go in that direction. But eventually you'll come back to me or someone like me that says, okay, I'm going to give you something that's credible, that's going to, you know, a turnkey solution from day one.
Okay.
You know, would you as a subscriber actually, you know, feel confident that I'm going to sign up knowing actually that my operator provides me, you know, telecommunications service, spent, you know, maybe nothing on this? I'm not so sure.
Yeah, I want my mobile money on Windows 8, yes.
Yes.
So, congratulations on all your success. I didn't realize when I first met you in Canada, I didn't realize the depth and the breadth of your operation.
We're a big
I
secret.
think you're a well-kept secret, and so we're going to try and change that and help you a little bit and get you some more visibility. And I really appreciate you coming in, and congratulations.
No, thank you.
Thank you.